Tell me, Chris, how did you come to the Lord?
Right. Well, a quick rundown is I came from a pretty violent background with my family, and I got involved in horse racing, and I was copying the same sort of violence there and everything else, and then the drugs came in and all that sort of thing, as most people go through, and I became very homeless. I had post-traumatic stress disorder from the way I'd been for the violence and everything. I had quite severe suicidal depression. I was very suicidal, and in fact, if you look up my arm, you'll see all these scars.
Where you hurt yourself?
Yeah, it's all self-harm. And then there were the drug overdoses, the accidental ones, and the deliberate ones. All because I was just lonely. I was hurting inside. I didn't want to live anymore. I was just so totally fed up with life. Really was. I didn't think there was any real love in the world or any justice in the world. I hated people. I hated the government especially.
And what turned that around?
Well, what turned that around? What turned that around is I had a drug overdose, and basically I was in a hospital. And this is in Geelong, Victoria. And most of the nurses on that ward were Christians. And the doctor was my doctor, a psychiatrist named Dr. Benjamin. He was also a born-again Christian. And the nurses would come up to me and talk to me and things like that. And they would tell me about Jesus, but they weren't really pushing it. They weren't shoving the Bible down my throat. And they were showing genuine concern for my life and for my future and everything like that. And I thought, hang on a minute, what's in it for them? They're not getting any money out of me. Or anything. They couldn't have any money. And that's the way I was thinking. That's the way most non-Christians do think. And anyway, Dr. Benjamin comes in, this big, massive man. He sits on the bed, so I put his arms around me. He said, you know that Jesus loves you and that I love you. And honestly, I had no idea what to say.
Wow.
I was totally blown away by that. I really was, I kid you not. And then we talked and that a bit, and then he left, and one of the nurses came up to me and said, Chris, would you like to go to a youth group? And I said, yeah, why not? I thought we'd be in a room playing billiards, drinking beers, smoking cigarettes, and a bit of chuff and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't like that at all. They came, they picked me up.
How old were you then?
I was about 17.
Yep,
yeah.
Teenager.
Yeah, very much a teenager. Yeah, I would have been about, I was 17. It was in September. I remember that. And we went round to this house for a Bible study. It was a youth group thing, and I didn't know there was going to be a Bible study. And there was a couple of other guys that sort of fitted my type, that sort of come from the streets and things like that. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. And I was actually waiting for someone to break out the beer.
Yeah.
I actually did. And but nothing like that happened. And then we sat down and we prayed, and I prayed. I genuinely prayed because, look, I when I was a kid, I used to go to Sunday school. And I had this belief in God. It was just a natural belief. I'd come home from Sunday school and I'd be reading the Bible. You know, things about the adventures of Ezekiel and Isaiah and all that. And all these golden chariots coming down from heaven and wheels within wheels and that. And it just blew me away. And I believed everything that I'd read. I didn't know anything about salvation till this one night. And yeah, it really, really got to me. I heard the gospel and I felt so lonely. And I felt so isolated and separated. And then the love of God just came in and grabbed me.
You were overwhelmed.
Oh yeah, never forget it.
Wasn't
You alright?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
just...
great. Good to remember.
It gets me a bit emotional sometimes.
That's good.
And when I got my Bible, my first Bible, I couldn't put it down. The more I read about God, the more I loved Him. The more I realised how much someone actually loved me. Yes, sorry about this.
That's good. That's real.
But yeah, to actually feel real love in a world that's got nothing. And I mean, it's got nothing. People would your best friends will just rip a knife into your back as quick as look at you.
Yeah.
It's dog eat dog, they don't care.
But
You know, they don't care. You can overdose on the floor amongst a group of friends, and you probably know this yourself. And you can be dead. They'll just take all your clothes off you, take your watches and everything else you got. And they do things like that.
But the love
That
of God,
happens. God wouldn't do that to me. He wouldn't leave me alone, and He hasn't. And I'm not saying it's an easy walk, and it never was. But I couldn't put my Bible down for a very, very long time. I became so fascinated by who God really was, because I didn't really know before. But you do, you have that when you realise that you need how much you need Him. It overwhelms you.
it's wonderful.
It does, so overwhelming.
It's wonderful, brother. Oh, mate.
And I still had problems after that, I kid you not. I was still in and out of psychiatric hospitals trying to deal with my demons and things, and it took me a while. But one of the real big breakthroughs I had, I was in Darwin, and I've been doing my social work degree and stuff like that. And I was seriously depressed. I'd broken up with my wife, I'd lost my kids, and a lot of really bad stuff had happened. I was in Darwin, I was on my own, I was sitting at a bench, and I was actually on my way to an appointment to see a psychologist. And I sat down at this bench and I looked at the doors of the clinic, and then I looked at the other side away from it. And then I realised I've got to walk away from Egypt. I've got to get myself together here. I can't let this beat me. I'm a Christian. I shouldn't be doing this. I can overcome this. But it was up to me to do it. It was my choice.
Right.
So what I did is I got up off that bench and I went home, and I never went back there again. All I did was spend all my time in my flat, reading my Bible, going to uni, doing all that sort of stuff, staying away from all the drugs and everything else, and just praying. And then eventually I left Darwin, and I went around Australia and wandered around a little bit. And then the long and short is I met my beautiful wife, and I think God sent her along to save me yet again.
Not good for man to be alone, is it?
No, it's not, no. Because I've been through a really bad first marriage. All my relationships before Vibette were absolute disaster. But I kid you not, Vibette's the best thing that God's ever given me.
Amen.
I mean, it's not perfect, but I tell you what, it's close to it.
Wow.
She's the best friend I've ever had.
Hallelujah.
She cares for me. She doesn't judge me because I'm poor or anything like that.
She loves
And
you.
because I'm not anything special, and that's quite okay.
That's beautiful. That's